necessarily going to win All Ireland. We were getting impatient there. But this year, I saw a different bunch this year. I saw a resilient bunch. And it's brilliant to see David Clifford delivering and getting an All Ireland medal. And just from a personal point of view, in 1964, my father was a selector for Kerry against Galway. And the night before the game, he had a pain in the chest. Wouldn't go to the doctor. Went to the game the following day as a selector, and was dead on Tuesday. And Kerry Galway matches to me always bring back this memory. And my father never saw us play the three sons. And today, the three sons have 19 All Ireland medals, and his two grandsons today, Gideon and Adrian, have two more. He would have been a proud man to have 21 All Ireland medals, senior football medals into his house. So it's just a special day. It's a special day. Yeah, special day.
That is absolutely beautiful. Really, really sad.
Darren Frehel says here, best wishes to Pat Spillane and congratulations on a brilliant broadcasting career. Yes, he divided opinion, but sport is all about opinions and the debates around them. Great honour to open the 2022 campaign with him in New York. Best of luck to Pat. And it certainly wasn't an emotional farewell for Pat Spillane on the Sunday game. Yeah, on Sunday. I mean, certainly, look, he's certainly a man who has split a lot of opinion down the years. I mean, I haven't always agreed with everything he said, especially, some of the times when he's talking about splitting Dublin in 3 and 4 and everything else. But, I don't think, when you watch that video, even watching it back, I've seen the video back a couple of times when he's obviously talking about his late father, who obviously passed just after the Kerry Galway All-Ireland final back in 1964. And, you see him talk about the fact that he obviously went on and won multiple All-Irelands, which we very well know as a player. But not only that, I mean, obviously his grandsons have gone on to win All-Irelands now as well. And, an emotional farewell. And one thing about Pat Spillane that I think I'm going to miss, and even miss in general about the whole sort of era of the Sunday game, is, when it was Brolly, when it was Spillane, when it was Colm O'Rourke. Look, Colm O'Rourke annoys me at the best of times and everything else, but it's going to be strange now, the fact that it really is the end of an era, because none of them are obviously going to be there at RT next year. It's going to be a lot of new faces, and, a lot of the new pundits they've brought in the last sort of 5 years or so, 3-4 years, I felt have almost been too safe, too predictable, boring. They're not afraid to voice their opinions, even if it may be a bit controversial. And I do think RTE and the mainstream media in general has gone way too safe a lot of the time. I understand being safe to a certain degree because, a lot of people get offended quite easily in today's society, maybe as opposed to 10 years ago or so. But at the same time, I think you need to let people have the freedom to voice their opinion in more ways than one. And look, Pat Spillane's obviously retiring. It's not like he's been moved on or anything like that. But I think having him voice his opinion, which may be controversial at times, and look, sometimes we may disagree with it, but at the same time, having someone like that in the Sunday game, I think has been absolutely brilliant in the last, since I ever watched GAA. Pat Spillane's always been there. And it's going to be strange not having him there next year. And I think, look, maybe his punditry skills in terms of analysis maybe have sort of dwindled as the years have gone on. Look, he obviously knows more than most. I mean, he knows more than me. He knows more than anyone probably watching this video. But, I do think maybe those have faded a little bit as the years have gone on. But at the same time, you can't take away what an inspiration he has been on that channel, and for many sports people like me who are obviously trying to, break into the industry and everything else. So, this is going to be the Twitter reactions. We're going to look back at some social media reactions from Kerry's All-Ireland win. We'll be looking through some reaction to Pat Spillane's retirement, and Joe Brolly as well, lashing out as he always does, this time at Kerry in a strange way, even though they won the All-Ireland. Very strange, very strange. But anyway, this is the Twitter. I still need to find a name for this show, by the way, but we're going to look through the social media reactions to Kerry's All-Ireland win. We are a few days late on this one, but here we go. Live score Kerry says here, amazingly, this is the first time in 52 years that Sam has returned home without one of the O'Shea clan on the team. An incredible testament to Paddy and his 3 nephews. And Ray Boyne says here, 2011 was Dub's breakthrough, having worked for the team for 7 years up to 2011 and continue for 7 more. 2011 changed everything, and yesterday felt like that for Kerry. There will be challenges ahead. There are no guarantees. It will be great to watch. Congrats, a Kerry GAA official. And absolutely there, 2011 as a Dublin fan was, Dublin's real breakthrough moment, where it felt like for years sort of preceding 2011 that Dublin had a lot of really good players. I mean, you had Bernard Brogan, you had Alan Brogan, of course. Kieran Whelan was there sort of in the years preceding 2011, but he was very much part of the panel. You had young lads breaking through like Jeremy Connolly, Owen O'Gara, who were looking very good. Philly McMahon was in the side as well. But for whatever reason, Dublin just couldn't seem to find the breakthrough. McCarthy was there, Michael Darragh Macaulay was there. But then 2011, it eventually happened. And that win on Sunday for Kerry very much felt sort of similar. And I know it's 8 years, so it's not as long as what it was for the Dubs in 16. It's, completely less the time. But at the same time, it was a big moment. And, I feel like with great teams, a lot of the time, sometimes they can struggle to get that first one over the block. There's pressure there. There's expectation. There's, I'd imagine the people in Kerry are they're very high expectations. I mean, look, Peter Keane last year, in my opinion, I don't think he done a bad job as such. You know what I mean? He got them to the semi-finals. He had a couple of injuries. A couple of things sort of go against him. He was working throughout COVID, which made things very difficult. Kerry probably couldn't train as much in a year as example that this Kerry team can. Did he get things wrong, Peter Keane? Absolutely. He certainly did. He got a lot of things wrong. But generally, I thought there was, most counties last year wouldn't have pulled the plug on Peter Keane. They would have kept him around for another year. But Kerry have such high standards. And, I think that can have bearing on counties sometimes. And I think even that first half performance from Kerry, I think was a lot to do with pressure. But at the same time, they got over the line. They found a way to get the job done. They got the monkey off the back. And I think you could very well see this Kerry side potentially dominate. Look, it's going to be very difficult. A lot of very good sides are probably going to regroup next year. I'm sure Tyrone are going to come back stronger. We'll see what happens with Dublin. We'll see what happens with Armagh, who looked very good at times. Derry have shown massive improvement. Mayo with a new manager, how might that look? So there's a lot of if, buts, and maybes, but there is no denying the brilliance of this Kerry side. And as a Dublin fan, I will be honest, it does worry me a little bit that you might see Kerry potentially go on to win more All-Irelands. Daniel Hussey says the David Clifford versus Shane Walsh final. Galway left everything out there. Kerry didn't have their A game yet, scored 20 points. A scary thought for the chasing pack. And yeah, it's an interesting point of view. I mean, certainly between both Clifford and Shane Walsh, it was an absolute brilliant spectacle watching those two sort of play out amongst each other. Two fantastic finals from either player and two brilliant individual performances. And as Daniel says there, and in a similar fashion as well to a lot of sides, sometimes teams don't look the best when they win All-Irelands. Sometimes they might struggle to get over the line or whatever, but you still won the All-Ireland. You still looked brilliant. You still achieved, the pinnacle of Gaelic football, which is obviously winning an All-Ireland at senior level. And that stands to you. And that will stand to Kerry, in my opinion. Make no mistake about that. And, they're not the finished article. I mean, Clifford's only, 22, 23. O'Shea's still very young. You've got under 20 lads coming through potentially. Kerry are very well fixed for the future. Make no mistake about that. And I'm worried. I'm worried as a Dublin fan, not going to lie. Sean O'Sullivan says, we're back, baby. Sadly. Really unofficial Kildare GAA says Jack came to Kildare and brought all that football knowledge back to Kerry and won the All-Ireland. Look, in all seriousness, maybe going up against the Dubs in that All-Ireland final as Kildare manager, maybe he's seen something about the Dubs sort of back then. And, it is kind of mad to think that he did go back to Kildare, and I don't think he done that well with Kildare, to be perfectly honest. Like, he got them into Division 1, fair enough, but they were on the other group. Obviously the groups were split. And what that ended up meaning was, Kildare were in a group with Cork. I think Laois were in there, and Cork, Laois, and there was another county in there that I can't quite remember now off the top. Meath were in there, I think it was. So it wasn't Meath, actually. It's evaded me, but nonetheless, they got to Division 1. But yeah, look, maybe he learned a couple of things along the way. Like sometimes as managers and as people in general, the only way you learn is when you make mistakes. And, maybe he had to make a few mistakes with Kildare where the pressure wasn't high. And when you think about it, he'd been out of inter-county management, I think, for 8 years before he went into that Kildare job. Going into Kildare, he was probably able to pick up a couple of things about the modern game. And then he went into the Kerry job fresh, if that makes sense. If he was going into the Kerry job, let's say 8 years out of inter-county management, it would have been a bit different, I think. Look, they might have still gone on to win the All-Ireland, but maybe he wouldn't have identified bringing in someone like Paddy Tally, for example, as a defensive coach. But look, it is a food for thought, and it is an interesting point on the view. Unofficial Tyrone this time around says, well done, Kerry. Well done, Paddy Tally. Also thought Sean Herson had a solid afternoon. Yeah, look, as a referee, you're always probably going to get a couple of decisions wrong. I think Conor Gleeson probably should have got a black card. I do think that free at the end for Kerry from Clifford was a little bit dubious, but look, you could go through the game and you could pick out decisions either way. The good news was there was nothing highly controversial, and I do think all in all he did have a very, very solid game, in fairness. Bernard Brogan says, great game. What a shootout with Clifford and Walsh. Joy to watch. Galway weren't far off. Need another couple of forwards to fire on the day. Kerry's depth and bench drove it home. Worthy champions this year. Well done, Kerry. Sure, I'm half Kerry anyway. And yeah, he certainly is. I believe his mum is from Kerry. So he certainly got a bit of Kerry blood in him. But I'm sure as a Dublin man and Dublin All-Ireland winner, I'm sure he wasn't too happy seeing Kerry lift the Sam Maguire. But look, nonetheless, as Bernard says there, you can't disagree with the quality of this Kerry side. Buff Egan, actually, we'll get to that. We'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, plenty of comments flying in here, so much appreciated. Jack says we'll miss the legend. Pure entertainment still always draws us in. Can't deny he is a passionate Kerry man and GAA man. Joe Brolly always seemed bitter with Kerry. I thought his opinion on Stephen O'Brien and Paddy as overrated is unfair. Kerry, main man Clifford, but they have good players outside of him. And yeah, like this narrative, in my opinion, that Clifford was the only reason why Kerry won the All-Ireland, in my opinion, it's very, very silly. It just doesn't make sense, in my opinion. Look, Clifford was absolutely exceptional, and maybe if he didn't produce the level of performance that he did produce and score 8 points, they wouldn't have won the All-Ireland. But who was playing the passes into Clifford? Who was getting the turnovers? Who was making sure that Clifford was there to get the ball? Who was winning kickouts? Who was playing do you know what I mean? Who was managing the team? Do you know that way? Like, I just think the whole idea that it was just Clifford, in my opinion, it's just false. It's just completely false. You seen last year against Tyrone, Clifford had a brilliant game, but Kerry didn't win that All-Ireland semi-final. So, it boils down to the brilliance in midfield of Jack Barry, the brilliance of Jeremy O'Connor, Paddy Clifford. Some of the work he's done has been exceptional. Stephen O'Brien, I thought, had a very, very good game. Look, he's, he probably doesn't score as much as maybe a couple of years ago, but he's quick on the ball. He's a brilliant ball carrier. He draws fouls. He makes things happen. And I think, as a football fan and as a manager, I'm sure you want players like that rather than players who take a couple of steps forward and then steps back, look backwards, that way. So very, very bizarre comments there from Joe Brolly, in my opinion. And he did say in his article on Independent Sport, unfortunately, we don't have the full article because, I'm not willing to pay, what was it, £2 or something like that? I don't know what they're charging nowadays to view these articles. But O'Shea was anonymous, is what it says here. Paddy Clifford falling over himself. O'Brien soloing and kicking the ball into the keeper's hands, which he done once, by the way. He done that once. Gainey absent. He wasn't absent. Like that little red hen, it was clear that David Clifford was going to have to do the job all by himself. And yeah, you know what the thing is about Joe Brolly? I do like Joe Brolly because he is kind of controversial. There's things that you can speak about, about him and all the rest, and he comes out with very interesting points of view, and he's a very, very intelligent man. But I do think every now and again he just loves to wind people up, and he loves to kind of just ruffle the feathers. And Mayo weren't around this year for his sort of annual article on what the Mayo lads are all celebrities and everything else. So, he couldn't really go against Galway because, Galway weren't supposed to be in the All-Ireland final. So he's probably looking at it and thinking, what can I write about that will get people a bit, wound up, or people might get a bit angry with? Let's say Kerry weren't that good and they were relying on David Clifford. And, for me, that's just not the case. And this was actually a tweet he put out during the game. I think he put this out at half time and he said, Kerry a mess, no shape, no ideas, a ball of anxiety, Galway composed, fluent and much the better team so far. Sean O'Shea anonymous, Paddy Clifford falling over himself and going nowhere. And like the little red hen, David Clifford is going to have to do this by himself. And look, yeah, Kerry were a little bit unusual, let's say, in the first half. Make no mistake about that. So, obviously in hindsight, a lot of this didn't turn out to be that way. But, and certainly there was a lot of anxiety in Kerry's play. But I still thought Paddy Clifford, look, he was putting himself in big positions. The thing about Kerry is even though it wasn't going right in that first half, they were still plugging away. They were still getting points. They were winning marks. Clifford won 2 or 3 marks, catching a brilliant high ball at different times, which was absolutely brilliant. They were still trying. They weren't going within themselves. They weren't making the attempts. They were still plugging away, and they were still only a point behind. And it can't always be perfect. I mean, the Dublin 6 in a row side. I know I'm speaking a lot about Dublin, but I really do feel that this Kerry side could potentially be like as good as that, at some point. But the Dublin sides, the Kerry sides of the past, Tyrone in the past as well, they haven't always won All Irelands looking the best. They've had their bad moments. They've had their bad performances. It isn't just going to be brilliant every single time. And to think that, in my opinion, is just a little bit foolish. David Clifford proved what we already suspected. He is the greatest player the game has ever seen. Against the blanket defence, he finished with an otherworldly 8 points and player of the match. He will be player of the year and in due course of the decade and the millennium. And he did also say on Twitter as well that he feels that David Clifford is the greatest of all time. And look, I think at this moment in time, he has the potential to be the greatest of all time. Make no mistake about that. I think he's very much on course to becoming the greatest of all time. But I think to put him in that bracket, to put him ahead of Colm Cooper, Peter Canavan, Bernard Brogan, Pat Spillane himself, all these legends that have played the game in the past, I just think it's a little bit far-fetched. Putting him ahead of Maurice Fitzgerald, for example, all these sort of legends of the game at this moment in time is a little bit far-fetched. Look, Kerry, if they go on to win 5-6 All-Irelands, 4-5 All-Irelands even, I'd say, in his career, then he's the greatest of all time because he's probably contributed to that exactly, in my opinion. And I think it's about doing it on the biggest stage time and time again. I think that's what separates the great and the very best. Like, for example, Dermot Connolly is one of the best footballers I've ever seen live. And even playing for Vincent's down the years, seeing him there in the flesh, he is a superb footballer. But he wasn't always there doing it on the biggest stage in All-Ireland finals time and time again. And that's probably why he isn't in the conversation as greatest of all time. Like, in terms of technical ability, he was absolutely brilliant. But, you remember his big performances in semi-finals, and he might have scored the odd brilliant point in finals, but I just don't think he's very, very best or greatest of all time, whereas he possibly had the potential to be, in my opinion. But look, it is all opinions at the end of the day. And just looking through some tweets in regards to Clifford, Mortimer Murphy says, I hadn't half forgotten this. In Clifford's 12 minor appearances over 2016, he scored 1068, of which 1050 came from play. It's a stat that will never be beaten. David Clifford is the GOAT. Kevin Cassidy said, I've seen some magicians in my day. Canavan, Gooch, Connolly, Maurice Fitzgerald, to name a few, but the two lads yesterday, Walsh and Clifford, are on a different planet and only coming into their prime. Cahar O'Kane says, so many All-Ireland finals are about systems and tactics and fear of losing. Today was about David Clifford and Shane Walsh, one-on-one with their men, ripping up the hallowed turf, 17 points between them, 7 frees, 2 marks, and 7 from play and exhibition. Clifford, Walsh, McDade, different level today. Galway will be back. Kerry shaded it and well-deserved. Also, best of luck to Pat Spillane is what Emlyn Mulligan says. Gavin Riley says David Clifford becomes the first Kerry footballer to win his All-Ireland only after 3 All-Star awards. I dare to say a fourth is on its way. And yeah, it's also very likely that David Clifford could potentially finish with the most amount of All-Stars, which is absolutely incredible, in my opinion. He could very well do so. Does he win Footballer of the Year this year? Possibly, and who knows? But look, it's all hearsay and it's all sort of future talk. Question, Aaron, I don't think they will be as bad defending champions as Tyrone. No, I don't think so either. I don't think so. I don't think they'll be knocked out in. I mean, you never know. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. I don't think anyone expected Tyrone to be as poor as they were this year, but I think a lot has to go wrong for Kerry to be as bad as that, in my opinion. Caden says here, Galway gave it absolutely everything and dominated Kerry in the first half, yet only led by 1 point. Shows how Kerry can keep points ticking over even when playing poor. And absolutely, it's a sign of a good team, a sign of a great team that, that can stick in games. Like the Dubs in 2016 against Mayo in the first half were dreadful. I think they kicked like 1 point from play or 2 points from play in the entire game, but yet they were leading at halftime because of the 2 own goals. And that's the thing, is that teams sometimes just find a way to get the job done when they're not playing well. And yeah, Tony Broderick says greatest of all time is Sean Purcell of Galway. Forgive me, I'm not 100% sure who that is. I don't mean to offend anyone there, but yeah. Moving on from that, then we'll have a look at some of the talk, I suppose, in regards to Galway in general. So David Connor says some effort, one that would make you oh so proud of this bunch of players after being written off by the entire county ahead of the final. And all year today is hopefully only the start of the journey for this team. They'll be back. Congrats to Kerry. And Chloe Lynch says, talk Galway, we're going to do it. Kerry just wake up big time and proved why they're top class. And it certainly did. It looked like Galway were going to get over the line. Do you know that way? Like they were so close. I watched the game back earlier today, and you forget even in the 60th minute, like I think they were leading. They went 14-12 up at 1 point, and you really felt like, geez, they have this here now. I think they're going to go on and win this game, but Kerry just found a way to come back, and I think it is the sign of a really, really good team. Make no mistake about that. We were speaking about Pat Spillane earlier, and obviously he's retired from the Sunday game, and as I was saying at the start, undoubtedly, he has split decision and split opinion a lot of the time down the years as a pundit on the Sunday game, obviously for the last 30 years. And certainly not everyone is going to agree with his opinions, but certainly he was getting a lot of plaudits on Twitter and all over social media, really. And you can see why. I mean, he's been, an absolute servant, really, to the Sunday game and obviously to Kerry GAA as well. And he is a legend of the game, make no mistake about that. Declan McBennett says, centre stage one last time for RT Sport. And the Sunday game, only fitting Pat signs off with Kerry in the final. Always a gentleman, always honest and forthright in his opinions, even if they didn't match yours. Well done, and thank you, Pat, from all at RT Sport. Keane McNicholas says, TV will never see another Pat Spillane. Do you know what? That is a fair point, isn't it? Because as I was saying in the intro there, like this whole sort of, safeness that we see in mainstream media a lot of the time, nowadays, I think is boring in many ways. And I just don't think you have that many people who are voicing that. Like even with Joe Brolly there, for example, like I wouldn't agree with him, but I'd much rather him go out there and be controversial and say what he feels rather than saying nothing or saying something like, the kind of boring, old stereotypical answer. But that's just my opinion, I suppose. Oliver Callan says Pat Spillane pouring his heart out on his last Sunday game as the Kingdom lads lift Sam. Great moment. Buff Egan says you'd have to have a heart of stone not to be touched by Pat Spillane's tears on his last day on the panel, thinking of how proud his father would be, his 2 grandsons. All the best, Pat, and all-time legend. You'll be missed a lot on the Sunday game. Evan McKenna, or is it Ewan McKenna? Someone told me recently I said his name wrong, so apologies for that. Too much sport on TV, too much everything available, all vying for prominence via hybrid bowl or anger or shock. Those words by Pat Spillane do none of that and are probably most astounding and moving piece of broadcasting you'll hear this decade. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know if it's the most moving piece of broadcasting you'll hear in the entire decade. Like, if you want to be specific, but look, it was a very heartful moment, and you know, it was great to sort of see him, you know, put that out there and be honest. And you know, I think it does show at the end of the day that, you know, there's always feelings there, there's always a heart there, and you know, it was moving in many ways, kind of seeing him talk about that even after all these years, you know. So but yeah, Noel Casey says Pat Spillane, another older pundit, gone to be replaced by someone born and bland, ageism alive and well in RT, and has happened across its sport and coverage. And yeah, like I think it's just been too much statistics and too much facts and everything else, do you know, that way. So, but I think at the same time, you know, like, look, we'll see what happens. I do think there are good pundits out there. Make no mistake about that. You know, I think Sky have a couple of good ones. I like Thomas Niblock. I like Peter Canavan. I like Mickey Hart. You know, like there's a lot of very, very good pundits out there. Make no mistake about that. And you know, some of the best out there. But look, we'll obviously have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. Padge says Kieran Kilkenny is related to Purcell's from Galway. I believe so. It runs in the blood. Yeah, I was thinking. I remember who Sean Purcell is now, to be fair. Jack says Clifford unreal, but disagree. Can't say it yet. Yeah, like I don't think you can quite say that he is the greatest of all time right now. Like, I think he's in the conversation and he's not far away. You know, the fact that we're talking about a player being the greatest of all time at 23 is remarkable, really. In my opinion, and certainly is something that is something that's crazy, and it shows to the testament of Clifford, the testament of his ability. And yeah, well, I suppose, look, we were just running through some quick Twitter reactions there, some quick social media reactions and all the rest. So let me know your thoughts and comments down below to some of the opinions expressed by Joe Brolly here, and also the video of Pat Spillane on the Sunday game. And what did you make of him as a pundit retiring? Look, who knows? Plenty of people will be very happy with him retiring. I know that for a fact. You know, but I think at the end of the day, look, he voices his opinion, you know, and he is quite controversial a lot of the time. And I think I'd much rather that than something that's very bland and boring, in my opinion. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. My name's Aaron. We'll be doing the football team of the year tomorrow evening, so make sure you keep an eye out on the channel for that. And yeah, maybe even the comments down below, let me know who would be your pick for the All-Star football team of the year in 2022. So we'll be doing that tomorrow live on the channel. I'd say 8 p.m. maybe is the time we'll go with there. So make sure to tune in for that. Very much appreciated. Barry says super stuff throughout the year. Really enjoyable. No bother at all, man. Much appreciated. Appreciate the comments and everything else. And yeah, see you all.